Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community. The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It with your host, B.J. Williams.
We have a great lineup for you today, books for all ages. We even have some CD reviews. Eugenia McClellan will tell us about the creation of her book, The Merriest Christmas. But first, Joyce McCauley Johnson wants to share with Susie Beasley and with you a really great book.
Joyce, what is this book about, Leaving Cecil Street by Joyce McKinney Whetstone?
This book takes place in 1969 in Philadelphia, back when people had parties.
Kind of like house parties,
Yeah,
block parties?
block parties.
Okay, back in the day.
Back in the day.
Okay.
And, you know, they would get together and party, and if someone needed help with paying their rent, then they would, you know, the neighbors would pitch in and help
Pool their
each
resources.
other.
So give me some idea about the characters in Leaving Cecil Street.
Well, it starts out with this lady named Ducey. She leaves a mental institution, and she had given up her daughter when she was born at birth.
Mm-hmm.
And she was going to Cecil Street to find her daughter.
Right.
And Ducey didn't have any clothes on when she left the mental institution.
She had no clothes on?
No clothes on.
Okay. All right.
And she camped out in Joe and his wife's house in their basement.
Right.
And she lived out in this basement for several weeks, just trying to get up enough nerve to go and find her daughter.
Right.
And she didn't know it, but she was at the house right next door to where her daughter lived.
So that sets the whole tone for Leaving Cecil Street, because she arrived there.
Yeah.
And so you got a whole cornucopia of all these characters that she's going to encounter. So what happens next?
And what happens is, they have the block party, and she listens to all this music, you know, from the block party.
Mm-hmm.
Several things happens in this book. Joe and his wife, they have conflicts. The wife has some problems with her mouth, and she needs to have some dental work done. And,
just all kind of things, day-to-day life.
Yeah,
Day-to-day life. So with Diane McKinney Whetstone, she has written some other titles, right?
yes, she wrote Tumbling.
And she also wrote Blues Dancing.
Blues Dancing.
And most of her things are set in Philly.
Yeah, in Philadelphia.
So you've got the Philly sound as far as the music, and you've got the drama of all these different characters. So what did you really think about the book? Would you recommend it?
I would.
Yeah.
People in my age group would relate to this book, you know, because of the music and
Bring
the
back
setting. Yeah, it bring back memories.
Well, Joyce, we really appreciate you coming and sharing with us Leaving Cecil Street by Diana McKinney Whetstone. This is a brand new title. It's available at your local library, your local bookstore. We'll see you next time.
Oh, it is wet, and the sun is not sunny.
Hi, my name is Jose Jimenez of your Metropolitan Library Commission. You know, most experts tell us that if you just spend 20 minutes a day reading to your child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're also preparing that child to learn how to read. Check with the experts at your Metropolitan Library for suggestions on just the right books for you and your family. And visit us at our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
With me now is Doug Benton of the Metropolitan Library System and the Oklahoma Gazette. And Doug, I've got a really neat book.
Well, it's after years, it's
It's about time, isn't it? This book is called 1215, The Year of Magna Carta. It was written by Danny Danziger, who wrote The Year 1000, which was very popular. But he got the assistance of John Gillingham, who is a professor of history in England. And it's just a wonderfully written book. It's very easy to read. You don't have to have a deep background in English history to understand it. It's packed with information, and it's all about what was going on. It's setting the stage for Magna Carta, which is what everybody in the English-speaking world says, this is what our freedoms are based on. And he explains what was going on in castles, what was going on in towns, what was going on with King John, which everybody was trying to figure out. Yes, the evil, he was. The evil King John. It's not just in Robin Hood myth that he was that way. But he also explains why, when there was a rebellion against every king of England, starting with William the Conqueror, why was it in 1215 that Magna Carta was produced? All the other kings had, as a focus for the rebellion, a relative of some kind who could be king. King John had a 9-year-old son who was not old enough for any of the dissatisfied barons to rally round. There was nobody to say, oh, let's get rid of King John, I'll be a good king and do right by you. So the barons had to find some way. They wanted to be done right. They had as king a man who had an absolute genius for making old friends into enemies, for losing territory. He started out with the most powerful nation in Europe and held almost 2/3 of France as well as England. Ended up only when he died, he held less than half of England. And this was mostly due to his own efforts. You know, there were people willing to take advantage of it. But the barons, since they didn't have a person to coalesce around, ended up thinking, well, the only way to handle King John is to really put him in a cage of a charter. And so they sat down and said, what has John been doing that's wicked and wrong? And they wrote it all down in the Magna Carta. But because they were also trying to convince, get more people on their side, they went looking for towns. There are things for towns. There are things for the middle class that were thrown in there. It was kind of a, what can we offer you to get you to side with us sort of situation. Now, John almost immediately nullified the charter. He got the Pope to say it was wrong, but John then died shortly after that, and pretty soon it became very traditional for the kings to say, yes, we will adhere to Magna Carta. Everything flowed from that. You'll find it in 1215, the year of Magna Carta.
Nice.
Great. Coming up next, we've got Kids Corner. Heidi Johnson is going to talk with Kelly Rhea about some really neat books for our very youngest readers.
Hello, with us today is Heidi Johnson. She's from the Tech Processing Center of the Metropolitan Library System, and she loves children's books, and we're so glad. You brought some very fun books today.
Yes, they're really, like you said, fun books. The first one, Knuffle Bunny, or as a German like to call it, Knuffle Bunny.
It is spelled K-N-U-F-F-L-E.
Correct. Takes place in Manhattan, and I thought it was such a clever way to put this book together because the background is always photographs, actual photographs of Manhattan, and superimposed on that are cartoon drawings of this family who is going to the laundromat and taking their clothes to wash them, and there is 3 when they go. Actually, it's the father, and it's Trixie, the little girl, and her bunny rabbit, Knuffle Bunny. Well, there is 3 when they enter the laundromat, and only 2 leave again, and on the way back, Trixie becomes very discontent and just tries to tell her dad that something is amiss. He doesn't listen to her till they get home. Mom knows right away, where is Snuffle Bunny?
Oh.
And so then they rush back to the laundromat and look for Snuffle Bunny high and low and finally find him in the dryer.
It's
I
frightening.
know, it was very scary. As it says, it's a cautionary tale.
Well, it's a great book. It's called Snuffle Bunny, and it's by Mo Willems. We know that you'll enjoy that. The second book that you brought, you really enjoyed that when you said.
Yes, I was laughing out loud as I was reading this. It's called Detective LaRue, Letters from the Investigation.
Dun, dun, dun.
Da-da-da. Mrs. LaRue, the owner of Ike, the dog, is on vacation. During that time, Ike is accused of catnapping the neighbor's cats. As Ike puts it, I don't know why anybody would want those cats anyway. They were not very good cats. But to make a long story short, Ike investigates and discovers that really not all is as it seems to be. And he solves the mystery, recovers the kitty cats, is promoted to an honorary detective, and all ends well.
Well, it sounds really fun, and it's funny to have the angle of a dog talking about the cats in that way.
And he writes such sophisticated letters to his owner. Mrs. LaRue, I am so sorry to have to inform you that I have been arrested and under suspicion for catnapping. And then apparently he gets a reply, and then the next letter you see, I am so sorry to hear that you cannot come to pick me up before the end of your vacation.
Oh my. Well, we're going to look forward to this book and reading it. It's called Detective LaRue, and it's written and illustrated by Mark Teague. We hope that you'll look for these books at your favorite library or at your local bookstore.
Thanks, Heidi and Kelly. And I want to remind everybody that the library checks out more than books. We also have videotapes, both movies and instructional information. You can check out the magazines that we carry in the library system. And also we have a very large collection of CDs, which Doug Benton and Jim Nimmo, who's of the Downtown Library, are going to share with you about one of the great CDs that you can check out at your library.
Jim, good to see you again.
Well, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Now, the last couple of times we've had you on this show, we've kind of been exploring the world of bel canto opera, a predominantly Italian school of the, early 19th century?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But let's move it into the 20th century. Now, we mentioned last time you were on the show that it kind of fell out of favor because it was so difficult to sing.
And the singers died off.
The ones who could do it died.
Right. And it's not, you can, of course, be trained in the style, but if you don't have the chops, I mean, forget it. You know, it's like any other thing. If you don't have a natural talent and you aren't trained how to develop that talent, well, you're just sunk.
You're sunk. When recording started getting good, I mean, really top quality
Recognizable,
recordings.
yeah.
Right. What happened to bel canto?
Well, there was a bit of a revival, and we have Maria Callas to thank for that. The book I brought today is a 2 CD set enclosed in the book. The first portion of the book is a shortened version of her life, biography of her life. But then the rest of the book is a dissection, if you will, of each of the arias on the 2 CDs. And the author has even given the timings inside each little critique of the aria so that you can review it yourself, each phrase, as he describes it in the book, so that you can follow up and listen to it and know exactly that you're in the right place that he's describing. And it gives someone who's just being introduced to opera a good way to understand what's being talked about without having to get all involved in jargon or professional lingo.
Okay, so you could actually listen to the CDs, get a sense of what you're about to be studying a little bit more carefully.
Yes, and he includes a translation, so you know exactly what's going on.
Okay. What did Callas have a particular role or an opera that she was best known for?
Possibly Tosca by Puccini, but that's not a bel canto role. But she was able to break out of the pack, so to speak, with her ability to sing the bel canto roles.
Yeah.
And this was her great leading edge, so to speak, that really brought her fame.
Yeah, you can't really tell this by listening to the recordings, but she was a pretty good actress too, wasn't she?
Yes, that was another part of her celebrity, was that she was so involved in all the roles that it was not the stereotype that you think of, where the buxom woman stands up and sings.
The Brunhilde type.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's listen to Callis.
Okay.
We've talked about her. Let's listen to a little Maria Callas. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim and Doug. Next, we have Heidi Port, who will be talking with one of our teen volunteers. We have teens help every summer with our reading program. Kendall Farrell helped with the library and wants to tell us about a great book she read.
I'm here with Kendall Farrell, and she has read Go Ask Alice. So Kendall, what is this book about?
It's about a young lady who experienced a drug problem, and she just goes to a party as a regular person, and someone ends up slipping her some drugs in her drink, and she gets addicted to them. And the story is her diary. It's basically herself writing the whole book. And that's the story about, and you see how she was on drugs and how they just completely destroy your life.
So why do you think teens would enjoy reading this book? Or
I think they would, because you could picture yourself being that person almost. You could just see yourself going and then just finding yourself just destroying your whole life, and you would just hate yourself. And I would always feel bad, like I'd feel sorry for my parents or my family and my friends just having to be put up with me and my problem, and I don't think I like that.
Why do you think this book was written anonymously?
I think it was like that so that the girl, she could kind of keep her privacy, and you could just put yourself in her shoes, and you could just say that I wrote this story, or anybody could write it. You could say it was your best friend. It just could be whoever you wanted rather than the girl who actually did write it.
And so would you recommend this book to anyone or only teens?
I would pretty much recommend it to anyone. I wouldn't recommend it to like little itty bitty kids that would have no idea what was going on. But I would recommend it to people in high school, going into junior high. Anything around that time would be good.
And who recommended this book to you?
My mom did.
Did she?
She told me she read it when she was in my age or something like that, and she really enjoyed it. And so she was like, but she couldn't really remember what it was like, so she told me to read it, and I was like, okay, and I really liked it, and I was like, this is a good book.
So this book has been around for quite some time.
Yeah, it was published in 1971. So
wow, and it's still relevant today.
Yeah, it's still, and the drug problem's probably just gotten a lot worse over time because there's a lot more out there than there was when she was around.
And so, why do you think that the teens that are in the book, is it just basically about her, or are there other teens in the book?
It's her story. So you hear about like the guys she liked and how many times she had sex and all that really good stuff that you need to know about and know how it just ruined her life. And there's a lot of other people in it. Like she talks about her mom and how her fights that they get into, just everyday stuff that you have with your mom or your dad or your schoolwork, how she has that pressure of being good in school. And
so do you think this book kind of changed your views on life, or?
Oh, I don't really know. Like, I think it kind of made me think more about how I feel about my life and other things, and I think it did open my eyes a little bit more to see how someone else like has problem with drugs, and how it made me want to just stay away from it even more, even though I hear every day, don't do that, don't do this, and it was like, wow, this is someone's actual story of how it completely ruined their life. And I didn't want that to happen to me or have my family go through that. Or,
well, thank you so much for bringing this book to us, Kendall. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It was nice talking to you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kendall and Heidi. With me now is Gina McClellan, and she's going to tell us how the Merriest Christmas came to be. And I'm going to ask you what inspired you to put this into a book.
Well, inspiration comes when your mother says, do something. And I said, what do you mean, do something with this song? She had written it back in the 50s. And in 1962 or 3, she gave it to me and said, do something with it. And I didn't know what to do with it, so I just filed it away for about 30 years. And then I had somebody write a little arrangement for it, and we sang it at a choral group for Christmas one time, and I thought, oh, yay, I've done something. And so I filed it away again. But in 2003, I met Danny Gordon, the illustrator. And at that point, the book was conceived. I was not even thinking about it on December the 5th, but on December the 6th, a book came to mind. And 9 months later, 2,000 books were delivered to my door. And so the inspiration would just be that Mother just kept after me, even though she's been gone since '92. It's, it just kept on and on until I finally finished it, and I coordinated it, and that's about all I did was coordinate it.
Well, there's actually a lot to that coordinating, because you were telling me that you, in effect, became a publishing company.
Yes.
And there's a lot involved in all of that, isn't there?
Well, I didn't know how much. Danny had, on about the first or second meeting with Danny, I asked him, I said, well, how do I go about getting a publishing company to accept this? And he said, why don't you self-publish? And I said, what's self-publish mean? And he said, well, you just cut out the middleman and you do it yourself. And so with Danny's help, he began to lead me to, these are different things you do, and first was to become a company, and so I have an accountant friend, and he helped me get started with all of that, and called down at the Capitol and found out if anybody had my name that I wanted to use, and went to the Library of Congress and had them check to see if there was a name like my name, and then I sent in the money, filled out the forms, and I became a company. And I thought that was pretty simple. I didn't know it was that easy.
But that was just the first simple step, because even though you already had Danny as your illustrator, there's still a lot of things that you have to do.
Well, see, I had two things going. Once we decided to have the book, in which Danny really is the book, well, then we decided we would have a CD, and we would have people sing it, since it was a song that my mother had written. And so I thought, okay, I'll have this CD, but I didn't know who was going to be singing it. I didn't know how to go about getting anybody, didn't know how to do any recording. And all of a sudden, people just started coming into my life, and I thought, oh, this will be great, and oh, well, we'll sing it 3 times, and I'll have a narrator and a lead singer, and oh, we'll have a Mrs. Claus come, and she'll sing it too, and oh, hey, let's have some kids come in, and they can sing it too. And so all of a sudden, a CD was developing, and the book was progressing, and I thought, oh, who am I going to get to print this book? And somebody said, well, why don't you use the, the Transcript Press in Norman? And I said, well, I didn't know they printed books. Yes, they do all this stuff. So I went down and I talked to them, and yes, they want to do it. And I thought, well, who am I going to get to do the CD? Press the CD. I didn't know that was the term. I thought you burned the CD, but no, that's not right, they said. And they suggested that I use the digitalcdr.com right there in Norman. And I went down and talked to him, and sure, they'll do it. And so things just happened. All of these things happened, and they happened in 9 months, where I'd been sitting on it for 40 years.
But you were the one that said, let's do it this way, and you were kind of the, I guess, the center around which all of this is circling.
Like for the book, I told Danny, we went through and broke the song down into different pictures until we came out with 8 pictures. And I said, now this is going to be a book for a 3 to 6-year-old, so it's a children's book, a picture book. And I said, I want all your pictures to be up close, so that that little child is just right there in that picture. And I don't want them to see Santa Claus way out in the sky and that time. I want it right up close. Danny came up with it. He can do anything. And, so it was just all these different aspects. And the sound effects on the tape went with Jeff Weimer, with the recording studio there. And he you know, we sat together up till midnight one night just working on sound effects. So actually I didn't do any of it, but I did okay everything. You know, that type of thing, but it wasn't my skill that put it together.
Well, I would say it was your skill at organizing.
Oh, well, I'm an organizer.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job. Now, how can people find this book?
Well, it's not in bookstores. They have to buy it from me, and I have an email address, which is JAGPUB, P-U-B, yes, at yahoo.com.
And that should come up on the screen here shortly, so people can email you and get the price and find out the payment that you will accept, and then they will get
My
booked.
website's not quite all the way up there, so I don't want to send them to the website yet.
Okay, but they can reach you at that email address and find out more about how to go about getting the book. If they happen to know any 3 to 6-year-olds who would like to have a little extra added to their Christmas, because this is a song I found full of hope, because it's about even the naughtiest children getting presents.
No, and you know, it just brings joy to you and it puts a smile on your face. So it's a really happy song. And we have not had a children's song since Rudolph, which was sung by Gene Autry in '47. But we have not had a really good Christmas song. You know, Grandma run over by a reindeer, and that's about it.
Yeah, and that's not a really very cheery
and this is an all Oklahoma book. Everybody involved in it's been Oklahoma, and all the people involved with it were in Norman. So I'm just really pleased to be able to have kept all of that right there.
Well, I think it's a great book, as I said, for any 3 to 6-year-old. Parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents of all kinds should be looking to pick up this book and make sure it's under the tree, or maybe even a pre-Christmas
Pre-Christmas would be really great. You know, it's in all of the Norman public schools now. So they just picked up all their copies.
Great.
Like a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I want to thank you very much for telling us about the Merriest Christmas.
I'm so pleased to be here. I thank you so much.
Thank you. And Doug Benton and I will be back very shortly.
Hi, I'm Donna Morris, Executive Director of your Metropolitan Library System. You know, experts tell us it's never too early to begin reading to a child. If you spend just 20 minutes a day reading to a child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're helping that child to prepare to learn how to read. Visit us at the Metropolitan Library System and let us help you select just the right books for you and your family. And be sure and visit our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
Doug and I both have dates, and I'm going to let Doug go first.
Okay, October 28th would be the birthday of Evelyn Waugh, who was the great English satirist. He was born in 1903, so a little over 100 years. Of course, he's dead now. He's been dead for a long time. Just recently, one of Waugh's books was filmed. It was called, the novel is called Vile Bodies, and it came out under the title Bright Young Things. But what have you got for us?
Well, on October 25th in 1854, during the Crimean War, a certain light brigade of British cavalry charged up the Valley of Death. And a certain Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote the really, I don't know, would you call it patriotic poem, Charge of the Light Brigade, half a league onward. So ours not to reason why. So lots of good stuff that can be checked out at your library at www.metrolibrary.org. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next time.